How do you recommend your students to study? Okay, that's a great question. I think I should talk about this seriously. So first of all, again, about the understanding the topic versus memorization. But how are they going to do that? Like, right? Like, how are they going to know they're trying to that they're understanding the topic rather than memorizing? I mean, I understand for some students, they want to first memorize things before even trying to understand things. But at the end of the day, it should actually give you some understanding. So I was a student. I used to study in advance before getting into the classes. It was for me, it was personal, totally. I had really difficult time understanding during the class. It's because it's a very short time and there's a lot of information you need to grasp and so on. So it's generally in advance, not after the courses. So I used to go into textbooks and try to understand before getting into the class. I know it sounds a little weird. I'm not saying that every student should do it that way. Another strategy I can tell is you can try to change the things when you read, like when you read from the lecture notes, right? When you read from the lecture notes, everything is done already and you read it like you're reading a book and everything looks really nice, tidy and so on, and your brain tricks you and you think you understand everything. But one way to understand whether you understand or not is to do something with that information. If, for example, you just read it and then you think you're done, you're okay, you're gonna do do good with that information, you need to check whether you can apply that information. For example, solving practice problems. Obviously, right? You solve practice problems. It's again, you can hide from yourself the fact that you didn't understand why, even while you're like solving practice problems. Can that happen? You have a look at the question and you say, "Oh, okay, let me have a look at the solution and understand and see whether I understand it." And you have a look at the solution immediately, and you trick yourself. You think that you're understanding the topic just because you're able to follow the solution. That's not enough, and you need to have some time with that practice problem without looking at anything, without looking at internet, without looking at chat gpt, without looking at the solution manual and so on. You need to have a one-on-one session with the problem and question itself. You should feel that challenge, right? Because it's what happens in the exam, right? You're alone with the question. You have nothing else. You have no helpers. You have no chat GPT. You have no nothing, right? And regardless whether you're going to take a test or not, I think this is essential for checking whether you understood something. Getting alone with a problem without any external help, I think, is essential in learning. So what I suggest my students to do is whenever they have a practice problem, they need to get isolated only with the problem without any external support. And let me tell you a couple of more things about this, like getting alone and isolated with the problem without seeing the solution. Psychologically, you will push your brain really hard, and you will convince this is actually mental battle with yourself. You're going to challenge yourself and say that, look, you must do it, whatever it takes. And what are the things that prevent me from solving this problem? Even you just ask this question, it's very beneficial. You say, what is, like, you have a question, like you studied distillation columns and unit operations and so on, and all of a sudden you have a look at the problem. It starts with, you're an engineer working in a chemical facility. They're trying to build a distillation column to separate ethanol from water and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden you ask yourself, oh my goodness, how am I going to start? What should I do? So all those questions come to your mind, and all those questions would not come to your mind if you just go ahead and look at the solution. You would not ask how you're going to start if you have a look at the solution manual already. It's already neat and clear. Everything is there. You're not challenging your brain. So that's my, I think, very strong advice, that you need to get along with the problem. At least, like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day whether you're able to solve that problem or not, but it brings you some, mental preparation, and it also makes your approach correct, I think, proper, to my opinion.